everyone, I'm going to quickly run you through the Inset Faces tool in Blender. I'm having a 3 bottle here, and this is a pump section. And what I've done is to speed up the process, I've duplicated this object and cleaned up the mesh so that we can experiment with the Inset Faces here. I'm going to isolate this object and let's see how different patterns we can create with this one. Let's duplicate this a couple of times. Right. Now on the first one, let's add a subdivision surface modifier. Turn up the levels to 2. I'm going to check the optimal display off. Apply this subdivision surface modifier. Go into edit mode and delete these loops because I'm not going to need them. Once you click on dissolve edges, these loops will be gone. Let's go to face selection mode and you can press 1 for the vertex selection, 2 for edges and 3 for face selection. You can press A to select all the faces and then we can go to the Inset Faces tool here. When you click on this tool, a circle will appear and you drag the circle inside by holding it. It will inset the polygon faces, and as soon as you are done insetting, you remember the adjust last operation panel under the left. So as its name suggests, we can make adjustments to it, and you will see there are a bunch of options, and we are going to experiment with these. We want the faces to inset along their individual surfaces. So to do that, we need to check individual option here. Once you check it, based on the value of thickness, it will show you the inset. Now let's reduce the value. You can adjust the thickness to the desired look. At the same time, we can use the depth value, extrude these faces outside. Do you see the extrusion? See here. And it is actually happening based on the face normals. Quite convenient option, and without having to go out of this Inset Faces tool and then selecting the individual faces and then trying to extrude or scale up. Rather than committing to this inset value as before, I just pressed Ctrl Z. We can perform this again. We went to Inset Faces tool and I got this yellow circle, and click on the circle and just drag it inside. As soon as you drag it, the Inset Faces operation panel will be popped up, and in that, let's check individual option here. My units in Blender are in centimeters, so you have to use the value based on what unit scale you're working right now. I think for me 0.05 is working well. Maybe there will be a different value that is going to work for you, so don't just blindly copy what values I'm putting, and you may not get the results that I'm having right now in front of my screen. So you have to use the values based on the unit scale that you are using. After setting the thickness value here, I can adjust the depth value. So what does depth will do is it will add the depth or the extrusion to the faces. So for that, Let's change the value in depth. So the positive values are going to bring these faces outside, and I think the negative values are going to take these faces inside. The depth value is going to move the faces outward or inward. So the positive values are going to move them outward, and the negative values are going to move them inward. So let's say if we want to have them outward, we can reduce the value a bit. The thickness will decide how much you want the faces to inset inside, and the depth decides how far you want them to move, how far you want them to extrude outward or inward. The positive values are going to move them outward, and the negative values are going to move them inward. Alright guys, so I'm going to click outside. So once you click outside, the inset faces panel is going to hide. Remember that once you click outside, this command panel is not going to come back unless you perform the same operation again. So till the time you're not finished changing the values or setting up the object as per your requirement, do not click outside. So I'm gonna click outside now to commit the changes. I've received. So now this is what we have. I'm quickly going to add some loops. I'm pressing 2 to go into edge selection mode, and I'm gonna come out of the inset faces tool and get into selection mode. I'm into edge selection mode now, and I'm gonna select the edge ring. I'm gonna do right click and loop cut and slide. So when you do loop cut and slide, I want 4 loops here on this ring. So what you can do is, once you click on loop cut and slide, it is going to give you this reference loop of the edge. So you can decide how many loops you want, and you can press the number as per that. So if I press 4 here, it's going to add those 4 loops, but it's not yet added. You have to add the loops to the faces, you need to click here. So once you click, it's going to commit the command, and to place them where they are created originally, you just have to press enter or escape. So they will set there. Now I have created these 4 loops, and I'm just going to add one more loop here close to this border, close to this edge here. I've selected the edge ring by pressing, you can select the edge ring by pressing Ctrl Alt and click on the edge. So it's going to select all the edges in this ring, and we are going to do the same thing, loop cut and slide, click, and oh my god, I think my snap is on here. I'm gonna just turn off the snap, or I'm gonna escape through the operation right now. I'll just press undo. I'm gonna turn off the snap and do this loop cut and slide again, click and slide. Same here, click, loop cut and slide, right? So yes, so now I've got some controllable loops here in the mesh. I'll see now what type of results we get after adding the subdivision surface. Increase the levels. I'm gonna turn off the wireframe. See guys, if you don't want this curve here, you can add more loops on the top section here. So I just turn off my subdivision surface modifier, going to edge mode again. I'm gonna select the edge ring on each section here by pressing shift and control alt. It's pretty easy. You just have to just keep pressing control alt and shift. Now let's add subdivide, because loop cut and slide will only add on one loop, but we want the edges to be there on all the selection here, on all the faces. So to do that, we have to right click and subdivide. The recent operation panel at the bottom, you can decide number of cuts here. I want 2 cuts. I'm gonna commit this operation. Let's select the loops by pressing shift, alt and shift. Okay, so you have to press alt and shift and keep selecting all the loops here. You can move them to select all the loops. Fine. Now we want them to move or slide outside, right on this face, so that this edge loop comes close to this face here. But we cannot just directly move it, because it's going to move in the wrong direction. So how do we do that? Maybe we can try the edge slide tool. Yeah, it's working for us. So it has opened the reference panel. We can adjust the value here. Say we want it minus 0.1, 0.05. And just click and drag, so it adjusts as per the value that you put in. You can do the same thing with these loops as well. I'm gonna leave it here, and let's turn on the subdivision surface mode, go to object mode. See guys, so this is more better. But if you want the curve lines here, you can just leave the process, do not add loops, and you will get the smooth curvature. If you want the sharper edges, you can add more loops, and this is the result, right guys?